What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be rewriting the entirety of The Flash Season 9. Now guys, recently I did make a video rewriting The Flash's Season 9 finale, but since here I'm rewriting the entire season, the finale this time will be a lot different than in that video. So yeah, just thought I'd make that clear to you guys. And yeah, obviously The Flash Season 9 could have been rewritten in a lot of different ways, but here's how I would have it go. So yeah, guys, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, to start things off, I would just say in my rewrite, Cecile and Mark would both just not be in it at all. They could have Cecile be the one that moves away instead of Joe or something along those lines. But yeah, nonetheless, Cecile and Mark, both awful characters that have no purpose on the show, I would just completely cancel them out for this season. Now, as for a character like Chester, I think he could still work with Team Flash at Star Labs only because of Cisco not being there. And for Allegra, I think she, maybe could only appear every once in a while at CCC Media, but that's it. I don't think she should be on Team Flash. I don't think she should be a hero. I think that's kind of stupid. And then as for Keone, the cryopod thing that Caitlin goes into at the end of Season 8, I think should just end up not working in Season 9. I mean, maybe there's like some type of catastrophe that injures somebody, because that was a cliffhanger at the end of Season 9. Something has to, or at the end of Season 8 rather, something has to come of that in Season 9, but I don't think Caitlin would turn into Keone as a result. So yeah, with that said, we would just have Caitlin for the whole season. So yeah, Team Flash for this season would be Barry, Iris, Caitlin, Joe, and Chester, because like I said, Cisco isn't there, and honestly, I don't think Chester is that bad of a character when he isn't around Allegra. It's just like, whenever he's around Allegra, he just becomes awful. But yeah, obviously in this instance, that wouldn't be the case for Chester. I think he would actually not be that bad of a character, which also means that the Allegra and Chester relationship thing would just be deleted from the show, which would be very, very nice to see. Now guys, that may seem like a much smaller Team Flash, which is why I think we could also add Timeless Wells to Team Flash. I think that would have been awesome to see, like a little reunion with the main cast. That would be really cool. Also, the fact that they had Joe retire from being a police captain in Season 7 is just so stupid. So I think we should have something like, Kramer got promoted and asked Joe to retake his position at CCPD. I think that would for sure bring Joe into the show a lot more, just like he used to, and would also make the location of CCPD a little bit better, because that location since like Season 7 has just been kind of weird, and I just really have not liked it. So yeah, if Joe could get back to, working at the police station, I think that would have made Season 9 a lot better. And speaking of that, we also need to see more crime scenes with Barry actually being a CSI, which we barely saw any of in the real Season 9. So I think, in my rewrite, that's what would happen a lot. We'd see a lot more CSI scenes with Barry. So with that out of the way, let's go over some of the storyline changes I would have for the season. Now, we'd still have the Red Death to start it off, but this time it wouldn't be so cringe and wouldn't flip the gender of the character either. And also, I would have Red Death actually be the avatar of the Negative Speed Force, not Cobalt Blue. Obviously, we know that there is an Arrowverse Bruce Wayne. We've seen him on Batwoman, and I would have him be the next avatar of the Negative Speed Force and become the Red Death. Now, obviously, we were told he was missing in the Elseworlds crossover, but that wouldn't stop the Negative Speed Force from choosing him as the next avatar and becoming the Red Death, assuming he's still alive, of course, but, the Negative Speed Force could just bring him back to life as well, just like they did with Cobalt Blue in the real Season 9. But yeah, this would be very similar to the comics if they did this with Bruce Wayne, where Red Death is an evil version of the Batman and the Flash combined. Of course, that's in the comics. And I would also clear up the Speed Force avatar stuff. It was really confusing in Season 9 where we thought Speed Force Nora was the avatar, but then Eddie literally said that Barry himself was the avatar of the Speed Force. So in this case, I would just have Barry be the avatar, which, would get rid of Speed Force Nora, which would probably be a good thing. And Bruce Wayne could be the Negative Speed Force avatar. And that would also make sense as to why Bruce would even want to target Barry, much less know who he is, because he's now connected to the Negative Speed Force. I also wouldn't have any of these rogues team up with Barry. I would have it just be Barry and Team Flash facing the Red Death. I think that would really it would kind of remind me of the earlier seasons where they didn't have all these random characters everywhere. I think that would be would have been a lot better to see. Now, at the end of this storyline, we'd obviously see Barry defeat the Red Death, but Bruce Wayne wouldn't die, nor would he continue to be the Negative Speed Force avatar. Instead, Barry would get Bruce Wayne out of the Negative Speed Force's control, and Bruce would become Batman once again, although we most likely wouldn't have been able to see Bruce in the suit due to rights to the Batman character. But nonetheless, we could see Bruce join the Justice League afterwards. Maybe we'd see the Hall of Justice again. I think something like that for the Red Death would have been way better to see compared to the Ryan Wilder BS that we saw. Now, speaking of Ryan Wilder, I also do think Batwoman could have still made an appearance in this storyline, as obviously we are dealing with Bruce Wayne here, so that would make sense. Bruce Wayne's mainly a Batwoman character, obviously. Now, guys, this might seem kind of crazy, but I would actually have the Red Death stuff wrap up after episode 3. Reason being, because, this is a shorter season, obviously, I think they absolutely needed to pay off that article we saw in season 8, episode 15, with Zoom and Godspeed destroying Central City. So that is what I think episodes 4 and 5 of season 9 in my rewrite would be dedicated to. We'd see, I think, what we should have seen would be Zoom. He would actually be alive post-crisis. He would just be in Argus. Godspeed would also be in Argus, obviously, and the two of them would escape together and team up. I think that would be really cool. We'd get some cool fight scenes between them and Barry. I think that would be awesome. And then Zoom and Godspeed would end up actually destroying Central City. We'd see that article. So yeah, maybe we see a scene where Barry is like running from Zoom and Godspeed, and then he time travels, maybe like back in time, like a day or a few hours. He's always been time traveling like years recently. But back in seasons 1 and 2, he was time traveling like one day or a week or something like that. So I think if he did that, and then he got a do-over at facing Zoom and Godspeed, and this time defeated him, and maybe Zoom would become Black Flash again, maybe he'd be thrown in Argus again, who knows. But nonetheless, Barry would defeat Zoom and Godspeed at the end of season 9, episode 5. So then for episodes 6 through 8, we would have had, we wouldn't have filler episodes. We would actually have another crossover. It would be exactly what happened in episode 9 with, Oliver Queen and all them returning. But this time it would be extended a lot longer and would have way more characters. Of course, Bloodwork would be the main villain of this, and I wouldn't have him be the only villain. I would also have Despero return. If there was a season 10 of The Flash, apparently Despero would have had some kind of storyline. So they did have plans to have him return. So yeah, the villains for this crossover between episodes 6 and 8 of season 9 would be Despero and Bloodwork, which I think this crossover, by the way, could have been called Crisis on Earth Prime. I think that would have been really cool. So yeah, obviously villains would have been Bloodwork and Despero. Now the heroes that I think would have been in this crossover would have been the Flash, Kid Flash, Green Arrow, Spartan, White Canary, Supergirl, and the Atom, and maybe Black Lightning and Superman. Of course, Black Lightning would have been much more likely than Superman, seeing as how Superman already has his own show. And I know you guys are saying, oh, they don't have enough money to pay the actors and actresses for that. I mean, yeah, who knows? But nonetheless, even with that in mind, I'm still going to have this happen in my rewrite. But yeah, in the crossover, nonetheless, a lot of the same things would be happening compared to what actually happened in The Flash Season 9, Episode 9. So yeah, we'd probably still have Bloodwork take over Kid Flash. Oliver would return because the multiverse is in danger. And just overall, it would be, the same storyline, but stretched out more. So a lot more cool things could be added, and there would be a lot more fight scenes and whatnot. So in the end, I think Bloodwork would be defeated in the exact same way, and Despero would be sent to his home planet or wherever he went to at the end of the Armageddon crossover back in The Flash Season 8. So yeah, maybe we'd get another scene at the Hall of Justice at the end of the crossover, and that would be a wrap for episodes 6 through 8. Now, starting with episode 9, we'd move on to the Cobalt Blue stuff, and I would change this up a lot, actually. So we'd get a cliffhanger at the end of the crossover at the end of episode 8, with Cobalt Blue, aka Eddie Thawne, coming out of a portal in 2023 in Central City. Now, before you guys say anything, I'd have the first episode of the storyline, aka episode 9, be dedicated to an origin of how Cobalt Blue came to be, and in this case, it wouldn't be because the negative Speed Force revived him, it would be because Reverse Flash revived him. So basically, if you guys remember the version of Reverse Flash that appeared in Season 2, Episode 11, he had not yet killed Barry's mother, and Barry had to throw him back into the future due to the timeline changing. Now, obviously, we never knew what happened in between the time where he was thrown back into the future and the time that he would eventually go on to kill Barry's mother. So I would have this Reverse Flash sense a change in the timeline, whenever he gets thrown back into the future, and he would figure out that Eddie Thawne killed himself to erase Reverse Flash from existence. So Eddie Thawne would still shoot himself, and it would appear that that Season 1 Reverse Flash would still be erased from existence, but in this timeline, Season 2, Episode 11 Reverse Flash would take Eddie's quote-unquote dead body to the future, aka his time, which would be like the year 2200 or something like that, and when he does this, he'd also learn the Flash's true identity, Barry Allen. When this version of Reverse Flash travels back to get Eddie's body, he would see that Barry's mask is off, and he would know that he's Barry Allen. But yeah, then Eobard would revive Eddie with some future technology in the year 2200. Eddie being alive would also explain how Reverse Flash has been able to come back over and over since Season 4. So then I would have Eobard turn Eddie into a speedster by connecting him to the negative speed force and would convince him to become a villain once he tells Eddie about his sacrifice not meaning anything and Barry stealing Iris from him. So then Eobard would send Eddie to 2023 as Cobalt Blue. And this would, of course, be one of Reverse Flash's ways to kill the Flash, as obviously he despises the Flash. So yeah, this would be a way for Cobalt Blue to be the main villain, but still for Reverse Flash to be behind it all. So Eddie would, of course, be a great emotional villain for Barry and Team Flash, as obviously he at one point was basically a part of Team Flash, but Barry would obviously end up defeating him, and I think this would happen in episode 12, but not the finale, that being episode 13. Barry would get the negative speed force out of Eddie's system, and Eddie would be back to being on Team Flash, which would have been super trippy, but yeah, Eddie would be teaming up with the rest of Team Flash for the series finale. But then when Reverse Flash sees his plan has failed, he gets extremely angry and travels back to 2023 to confront the Flash, which would lead into the series finale, Season 9, Episode 13. So keep in mind, Barry at this point would still think that Thawne didn't know his identity until Thawne calls him by his name, which would shock Barry, and then Thawne and Barry would have an epic speedster battle after that, which would essentially end in Thawne getting frustrated that he can't defeat Barry, but then he'd get the idea to go back in time and kill Barry as a child, which would wipe Barry from existence. So Thawne runs and opens a portal to go back to that night, and by the way, guys, in this version, I wouldn't have him go back to that night a few hours beforehand. I would have him go back to that night just like he did in Season 1, right before he killed his mother. So yeah, Thawne would, of course, go back to that night. Barry would know what's going on because he's already, experienced this, and he would follow Thawne back. And the scene we've seen a million times would play out with Barry and Thawne fighting around Nora Allen, Barry saving his younger self, Thawne getting angry and killing Barry's mother instead, and then Thawne realizing he lost his speed and he's stuck in the year 2000. Now, as for Barry, I would actually not have him become the lightning bolt that strikes himself in the first place, although that would be really cool. I would have him still go talk to Thawne after the fact, but then time travel back to 2023, leaving Thawne in 2000, as obviously he needs to stay there so Barry can actually become the Flash, so, Thawne can turn Barry into the Flash, so then the events of Season 1 can play out. Then we'd probably see Iris give birth to Nora, and then I think it would have been cool to see a Flash museum starting to be built in Star Labs, but of course, Team Flash operations would still be happening underneath the museum. And then to end the show, we could have had the exact same monologue from Barry, except this time Barry would end it by saying, "My name is Barry Allen, and I'm the fastest man alive. I am the Flash," just like how we always used to say in the earlier seasons of The Flash. So yeah, guys, that's about it for my rewrite. Now, I don't know how possible any of that would have actually been in The Flash Season 9, but yeah, that's how I would have done it if I could. But yeah, I'm really interested to see your guys' rewrites. Make sure you comment them down below. And comment what you guys think about my rewrite. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.